Something broke, and most people walked past it. They shrugged, called someone, paid someone, waited for someone. But there was one person in that room, maybe you've seen them, who knelt down, tilted their head, and started thinking. Not panicking, not complaining, thinking. And within minutes, it worked. Just like that. Who are these people? Because it's not just about tools and wires. It goes so much deeper than that. The psychology of people who can fix anything is one of the most misunderstood superpowers on Earth, and today, we're pulling it apart. Here's what separates a fixer from everyone else before they even touch the problem. They don't see a broken thing. They see a system that has stopped behaving correctly. That shift, that tiny reframe, changes everything about how their brain approaches the situation. Psychologists call this systems thinking. It's the ability to see relationships, chains of cause and effect, instead of isolated events. When your sink leaks, most people see a leak. A fixer sees pressure, a seal, an age of pipe, a connection point. They build a mental map instantly without even realizing it. This isn't genius, it isn't luck. It's a trained pattern of perception that most people never develop because they never had to or never chose to. Here's a truth that will make you uncomfortable. Most humans are terrified of not knowing. The moment something is uncertain, we freeze, we flee, or we hand it to someone else. People who fix things, they are uniquely comfortable sitting inside uncertainty. There's actual neuroscience here. Fixers have a higher tolerance for cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding two conflicting ideas. This should work, this doesn't work. Let me figure out why. They don't need the answer immediately. They're okay with the process. They trust that if they stay curious long enough, something will reveal itself. That patience, that willingness to be confused without shutting down, is rarer than most people realize, and it's trainable, but it requires a fundamental shift in your relationship with not knowing. Let's talk about something schools almost never teach, but fixers have an abundance of: spatial intelligence. The ability to mentally rotate objects, visualize internal structures, and predict how moving one part will affect everything else. Howard Gardner, the psychologist who revolutionized our understanding of intelligence, identified this as one of 8 distinct types. And while classrooms obsess over verbal and mathematical thinking, spatial and mechanical intelligence gets almost no airtime. But it's the exact kind of intelligence that lets someone look at an engine and just know where the problem lives before they've touched a thing. The fascinating part, studies suggest this can be significantly developed with practice. Jigsaw puzzles, building things, taking broken things apart just to understand how they worked. That last one is crucial. Fixers often had childhoods where they were allowed or even encouraged to break things apart. Here's where it gets really interesting and personal. Fixers aren't just mechanically intelligent. They carry a specific emotional architecture that makes them who they are. First, a deep aversion to helplessness. Many people who became fixers grew up in environments where waiting for someone else to solve a problem wasn't an option. Necessity rewired their response to problems, from avoidance to engagement. Second, an identity built around competence. When your sense of self is tied to capability, to being the person who handles things, problems become opportunities for self-affirmation rather than threats. Third, and this is the quiet one that most people miss, fixers often experience something close to joy during the process, not just at the solution. During the struggle itself, it's a flow state, a meditative focus that most people only find in sports or music. Fixing things for them is a form of mindfulness they never had to learn from an app. Now here's what separates people who fix one thing from people who can fix anything. It's not a wider knowledge base. It's a self-reinforcing loop of learning that compounds over time.
every time a fixer solves a problem, three things happen in their brain. The neural pathway for that type of problem gets stronger. Their confidence that the next unknown problem is solvable increases, and their curiosity, their appetite for the next challenge, grows. Compare that to someone who avoids problems. Every time they hand something off, they subtly signal to their brain, "I can't handle this." That pathway shrinks, their confidence decreases, avoidance becomes a reflex. This is why the gap between fixers and non-fixers widens with age. It's not about starting talent, it's about which loop you've been feeding. The good news, and this is important, is that loop can be started at any age. Any age. The brain is that plastic. Let's talk about the thing most people never want to talk about: failure. Fixers fail constantly, constantly. They misdiagnose, they strip screws, they make things temporarily worse before they make them better. And they have an almost completely different emotional response to that failure than most people do. Where most people experience failure as a verdict, "I'm not smart enough, I'm not capable enough," fixers experience it as data, new information, a narrowing of the possibility space. This isn't an attitude they chose on a Tuesday. It was built through repetition, through hundreds of small failures that didn't kill them, that actually taught them. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset maps directly onto this, but fixers often arrived at growth mindset not from reading about it, but from living inside it, problem by problem, repair by repair. Their relationship with failure is the most important psychological trait they have, and it might be the hardest one to learn, but also the most transformative once you do. So what does all this mean for you? Whether you're already someone people call when things break, or you've always been the one who calls for help, this psychology isn't fixed. It's not locked into your DNA or decided by your childhood. It's a series of mental habits, patterns of perception, ways of relating to problems, uncertainty, and failure that can be practiced deliberately over time. The next time something breaks, and something will break, don't reach for your phone. Reach for your curiosity. Stay in the discomfort for just a few minutes longer than you normally would, because that moment, right there, is where fixers are made. If this changed the way you see yourself or someone around you, hit subscribe, because we go this deep every week. And share this with the person in your life who fixes everything. They deserve to understand why they're wired this way.